Last night, Thomas Cook's sad, slow demise was complete.
The message is Thomas Cook is dead.
Today marks the end of a 2-week nightmare in the life of Thomas Cook.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all the crew on board.
The death of a 178-year-old company that held national treasure status, that has seen holidaymakers stranded and staff discovering they're unemployed without any warning.
The dedicated workforce in total shock.
There are Thomas Cook workers that have been following up how do you apply to go to a food bank.
In this documentary, I want to find out what life is like for the thousands of Thomas Cook employees who are now left unpaid and looking for work.
We were never getting told by management that your job was in jeopardy.
We've got a right to be upset, to have your world turned upside down in the matter of seconds.
Our cameras go on one of the rescue flights as millions is spent getting stranded Brits home.
The plane that's on its way might not even have enough seats for the people who are here.
And we ask, just when did Thomas Cook bosses know Britain's oldest and most loved travel agent was on the verge of collapse?
Thomas Cook has been treated as a sheep to be sheared by its bosses, and they've killed it off in the process.
Today marks the end of 2 weeks that saw the death of Thomas Cook. It's seen the biggest repatriation of people in peacetime. But for the 9,000 employees and their families, the nightmare is just beginning.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, are you okay?
I'm Anna.
Nice to meet you, I'm Dave.
Come in.
Yep.
Thanks, love. Thank you.
I've come to meet Dave and his partner Natalie. He's been an engineer for Thomas Cook for 11 years.
Be nice, be gentle.
The collapse has left him uncertain of how he's going to support his young family.
Explain to me where you guys are at now. So you have done a load of work that you've not been paid for.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. We've had the compensation from the government.
Which doesn't go
Which is capped.
anywhere near what you're actually owed.
No, I'm owed near enough double of what I've actually been paid.
Wow.
But I'm never going to see it because the company's in insolvency, so that's just, I have to just suck it up and take it. I came in after obviously being told at the meeting I was redundant without pay as immediate effect. Bobby ran to the gate, didn't he? And he was like, "Daddy," and he ain't got a care in the world, you know. He just, and when I looked at him, it was just the realisation of everything that's happening around him, and he'd got no idea of it. That's when I kind of just broke. I sat here and just broke down.
Yeah.
It was...
So Dave, you've said that the only option for you really, as an engineer, is you're going to have to take work away. How do you feel about being away from your two very young boys?
Just don't want to do it. Simple as that. I think it's a means to an end. Got to accept that maybe that is the reality that we're faced with now. But yeah, it's not where I wanted to be. I want to be a dad. I want to be as close to him as possible. I don't want to have to leave Natalie with a sole job of raising them on her own. I want to be here. And to think I might be alone in a hotel room somewhere, far away from the kids, and he's asking for me, it'll break my heart.
2 weeks after losing his job, Dave still finds it hard to comprehend how this was allowed to happen.
A year ago, could never ever imagine being in this position today. Thomas Cook, you just felt like it was just too big of a brand, too strong of a name to ever go under like that. We were always getting told positive messages. We were getting direct messages from Peter Fankhauser and board directors saying it's not really as bad as what the press are making it out to be. That's why it's just so hard to accept. I'm sure someone would tell me, but I don't know how a company who turns over $9 billion a year can be in such a bad state of affairs. I think for a long time, the people at the top have failed us by making bad business decisions. That ultimately was the demise of the company, I think.
'60-year-old Pete Walkden worked at Thomas Cook as an aircraft engineer for 23 years. He and his wife Deb, their 2 sons, Alex and Tom, and Tom's girlfriend Kate have all lost their jobs.
It's just a shame. It's just not a nice thing. It's not nice when one person loses their job, but then when it's your immediate family.
As a family, the Walktons have clocked up a grand total of 73 years' service at Thomas Cook. Deb worked as a business travel consultant for 15 years.
I've absolutely loved my time there. I've met the most amazing people. We were just one huge family.
Kate first heard the news of Thomas Cook's demise on TV in the early hours.
I was awake at 2 o'clock for the announcement, and it's something you never think's going to happen because it's a big brand.
Not knowing what to expect, Pete and his sons, all Thomas Cook engineers, went into work as usual.
Called into a meeting at 10 a.m. into the hangar to be told company had folded and that you were out of a job.
There will have been more than 200 people in there, but I just heard people crying. That was the worst bit.
Literally, it was like, bang, there's no money, you're out of a job, collect your stuff, and you pass in, and off you go.
Yeah, there's
no and good luck paying your bills next week.
Yeah, no buffer.
The next day, 29-year-old Kate was told to come in and collect her belongings. She'd lost her job of 5 years as an aircraft parts buyer.
So that was quite upsetting. Well, not quite, it was devastating. You was treated as a stranger, and you was escorted to go and get your things because you've done something wrong when really you haven't done anything wrong at all. You've worked there and you've worked hard.
I'm devastated, absolutely devastated. Absolutely, even more devastated because it's not just me, it's the whole family. You know, I mean, the 2 lads have got their own homes, Alex has got a family, they've got the mortgages and all the responsibilities.
We're still sort of numb. It was more like grieving at the beginning, I think. It was sort of coming in waves. But then after that, I just got a bit angry, I think.
I'm absolutely distraught. And people keep saying, you're young, you've got this, you've got that. That's right. But we've got a right to be upset, to have your world turned upside down in the matter of seconds.
Mortgages and bills need to be paid. For the Walktons, finding work in the next few weeks is crucial. As shock turns to anger, how could Britain's oldest travel agent, employing generations with millions of customers, have collapsed so dramatically? Two weeks ago, the world's oldest holiday firm, Thomas Cook, went bust. It had been trading for 178 years and was a household name loved by generations.
At this time of year, people all over the country are planning their next holiday.
I got them! Okay, now we've all made up our minds exactly what we want.
Nostalgic adverts like this show Thomas Cook holidays as central to British family life.
Oh, Lucy, don't forget Oliver.
With the Thomas Cook Holiday Pledge, we promise to find you a holiday resort that fits all your requirements.
The brand had survived 2 world wars and the reign of 6 British monarchs. And yes, the founder was called Thomas Cook, a Baptist preacher.
Thomas Cook was a very odd person. In a good way. He had a difficult home life. There was alcohol abuse. Therefore, he actually became a temperance campaigner.
Thomas Cook's first dabble in the travel industry was to offer excursions by train to entice people away from the pubs in the city.
He transferred his teetotal crusade into a travelling crusade because he thought that he could use the new power of the railways to defeat the demon drink.
5th of July, 1841, and a train sets off from Leicester destination Loughborough. Thomas Cook had chartered the entire train, and that, I think, you can carbon date as the very first time that travel was industrialised and democratised.
The father of modern tourism was up and running, expanding operations, offering all Brits the new opportunity of excursions at home and abroad. But when his son, John Mason, took over the company, he took it to the next level.
It was the son who really created the business because he was very ruthless, and he turned the business into a business that would conquer the world.
The company became the pioneer of organised travel and was one of the first to use circular notes, later known as travellers' cheques.
If you happened to turn up in Cairo or Bombay, as it was then, with a pocket full of guineas, that wouldn't necessarily get you very far. If you turned up with a document that was backed by Thomas Cook, which basically just said, don't mind which country in the world you are, we will give you full value for this circular note, then you were in luck.
Thomas Cook continued to flourish, and in the 1950s, 60s and 70s took advantage of the post-war travel boom to build the brand. By the 1980s, they were heading towards securing their status as a national treasure.
So, 3 people, 2 weeks in Greece, late July, let's see.
Helped by the invention in 1984 of their renowned advertising slogan.
Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it.
Michael Hennessy was the man at the ad agency tasked to come up with the phrase, which has entered the Advertising Hall of Fame.
We thought ourselves, well, OK, it's the only place, really, to go to if you think of booking a holiday. Why bother with anyone else? And that's really how the line came about.
Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it.
Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it. So it's that sort of reassurance, that sort of, why look at all the others when you have no need?
Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it.
And they did, with over 19 million customers a year at its peak. But the party didn't really get started until 1998, when they bought the notorious Club 18 to 30 brand, promoted by glossy, enticing adverts like this.
So the Mediterranean resorts, which was the speciality of Club 1830, of course, are all about the first holiday experience, that go and get drunk experience, that go and have sex experience, dare I say it. And Club 1830 really traded off that. They made a virtue out of that being what people wanted to do. Their adverts sold it that way. The club reps almost grabbed people the minute they stepped off the planes and offered them trips and pub crawls and tours and nights at clubs. And it was a whole trading brand based around the youth experience.
Club 18 to 30 opened up a new market to the company and reportedly attracted up to 70,000 customers a year. Selling the holiday dream as seen in this type of promotion. By the turn of the 21st century, the company had become a well-known brand with celebrity-endorsed adverts. How then did it collapse and leave thousands of loyal British customers stranded? I've come to meet Sue and Steph, who managed to return to the UK amid the recent chaos. They'd been holidaying with Thomas Cook in Cuba to celebrate their wedding anniversary.
What is it about Thomas Cook that you trusted? Did you feel sort of happy to book through them?
We've had lots of holidays with Thomas Cook and always been really happy with the service that we've received. They treat you like family.
The couple were coming to the end of their holiday when Steph was admitted to hospital after suffering severe pain in his feet and struggling to walk.
So unfortunately, Steph did get sick while we was there. So he did actually spend 2 days in hospital. And then Monday morning was when... Sorry, can we just...
Of course.
Okay.
The hotel started saying that We couldn't leave until we paid the hotel bills. And of course, we've already paid these on our holiday.
By this point, the Civil Aviation Authority, a regulatory body established by Parliament, had issued advice online for tourists in similar situations.
The CAA website did say, if you are asked by the hotel to settle any hotel bills, do not pay it. It was clear.
Had you not known that, then you guys could have ended up paying again.
Yes.
For your hotel bill.
Yes. And we wouldn't have been able to claim that back from our insurance.
After 3 days waiting for information, Sue and Steph were eventually put on a flight back to the UK.
You're home now.
Yes.
How do you feel about the collapse of Thomas Cook?
I think for me, the biggest thing is, why did it happen? Why did it get to this stage? There must have been telltale signs within the company that something was wrong financially.
The summer was coming to an end, and Thomas Cook's negotiations to stay in business were on a knife edge. Executive board members were scrambling to keep the company afloat, with urgent negotiations ongoing to secure a rescue package.
We got word that the bankers were not confident Thomas Cook could get through what looked like a ferocious winter. So they said, you've got to have a £200 million line of credit set up. They sat down again with the bankers and said, look, come on, somebody's got to give, because it would be ridiculous if the company went out of business tonight.
With the company's debts over £1 billion, things weren't looking good.
I can imagine that as an investor, you're probably looking at the future of that business and thinking, well, there are regular customers. However, there is so much debt as a legacy of this business. Is this right for us to make the move?
With Britain's oldest travel company reportedly well and truly on the brink, CEO Peter Frankhauser, under fire, was seen leaving an all-day meeting in London. The company's future was still unclear.
Have you reached a deal? Have you reached a deal? People discovered that, it was not looking good and it didn't look like the company was going to be making it through the night.
Have you got anything to say to your customers?
The very next day, in the early hours, the news everyone feared was finally announced. Thomas Cook CEO Peter Frankhauser spoke to the world's media.
First, I want to apologize to my 21,000 colleagues who I know will be heartbroken. Secondly, I would like to say sorry to all our customers.
The message goes out, Thomas Cook is dead.
Simon Calder was reporting throughout the morning from Manchester Airport as the story unfolded.
I'm hearing at Manchester Airport that there are people going around attaching so-called notices of detention to Thomas Cook planes, basically parking tickets saying, don't move this plane, you're not allowed to until you've paid the airport charges you owe us.
They have almost no assets. So they have a fleet of aeroplanes. The vast majority of those are leased, they don't own them. All the ones that are owned are very old and not likely to be worth very much.
Up and down Britain, tourists were flooding into airports expecting to go on holiday.
The plane that's on its way might not even have enough seats for the people who are here. So they're not reassuring us. All we're hearing is things that add to the worry.
I want me to fly by myself, but this is very upsetting.
Figures show that 360,000 passengers had their flights out of the UK cancelled. And many of the Thomas Cook staff were still in the air as the news broke.
As some of you may be aware, you may have switched your phones on this morning. Just like to take this opportunity to thank all the crew on board.
The captain on this Thomas Cook flight from Cancun to Manchester bids an emotional farewell to passengers as he realises that this flight will be his last.
We do have many friends, colleagues throughout the business today, and I'm sure you'll appreciate We'd just like to say thank you. Hope you enjoyed your flight with Thomas Cook, and you'll be the last people to be on this aircraft, so please have a safe journey onwards home. Thank you.
Many more pilots and cabin crew were discovering the news 30,000 feet in the air.
We're so happy to be here, and we hope that you did enjoy your very last Thomas Cook Airlines flight with us today. Thank you.
There were some really distressing scenes. Thomas Cook does fly long haul, and some of the airlines staff were actually on flights, had taken off, and it was only midway through their flight that they discovered the company had gone bust.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, after working with the company for 26 years down in Cardiff, I've been flying for 30 years. This is a very upsetting day. We do appreciate your support over the years.
The greatest brand in travel is unravelling live.
Despite being unemployed, Thomas Cook's staff all over the world continued to help get people home.
I think they were just having a little sort of group hug over there then, just sort of like saying let's just keep going and just sort of do what we can do, but they can't really do anything now. But I think they're just here with their goodwill, just trying to sort of help everyone through the next few hours to get them home.
They've got quite emotional, obviously, because it's their jobs as well, isn't it? So yeah, they're doing their best. They're doing the best for the, what they can do, given the circumstances.
Reps abroad were still trying to continue to help and reassure the customers out there that they would get home.
They come across and thanked us for going on holiday with them. I mean, how nice was that? They didn't have to do that, did they?
No.
With Thomas Cook's fleet of planes impounded, passengers were stuck in 18 countries across the world. Costing the British government an estimated £100 million, Operation Matterhorn kicked in immediately.
At very short notice, they've had to set up a pop-up airline with 100 aircraft from dozens of different airlines going to several dozen airports, kind of three-dimensional chess, which you've got to get right because the clock's running.
Getting them all home would be a huge undertaking. Operation Matterhorn is set to be the biggest ever peacetime repatriation, aimed at bringing 150,000 people home in just 2 weeks. Stranded holidaymakers in Mallorca were being flown back to Manchester on a Malaysian Airlines A380.
Now, these planes can take up to 500 passengers, and they've been brought in by the government from Malaysian Airlines for this specific repatriation. The reason being that obviously you can put up to 7 plane loads of normal Thomas Cook passengers into one big plane. That did then mean, of course, that people who were due to be flying back into Newcastle or East Midlands, Stansted and Gatwick all of a sudden found themselves being repatriated back to Manchester and then being put onto buses to get back to their original airports.
It's a 4.5 hour coach transfer from Manchester to Stansted. I just think it's diabolical, absolutely diabolical.
But on board, some of the 500 passengers were even lucky enough to be given a business class seat.
Very sorry to hear about Thomas Cook, obviously, but fair play to the government for bringing us home in these. This is special.
Less than 3 hours later, the passengers arrive in a wet and windy Manchester. Home soil at last.
I think it's worked miraculously. We've had no hold-up, welcomed by people, guided us through.
Operation Matterhorn finishes today, concluding 2 weeks of worldwide logistics and goodwill. But bigger questions remain about the execs in charge of a company that appeared to be too big to fail. Nearly 2 weeks ago, the desperate last-minute bid to save Thomas Cook failed. 21,000 staff worldwide lost their jobs. In the UK, some are fighting back. Mario Carter was part of a Thomas Cook cabin crew.
My crew bag's still there. I'm sure it'll take some time before I manage to empty it.
Mario was in the air when news about the collapse started to filter through.
It was really weird. Everyone was just in their own little world, just getting on with the jobs, and not many people was talking. You know, it was that fear of what news are we going to land back to.
Today, Mario is attending a protest with his former colleagues in Manchester. They're demanding financial support from the government on what should have been their payday.
It's my first protest. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm a little bit nervous. You know, I'm hoping a lot of people from work do turn out, you know, so we can try and get some answers, make a little bit of a noise and just see what's going to happen, really.
Pay us now! 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 Pay us now!
Thousands of people in Greater Manchester woke up last Monday morning to the news that they were out of a job, and today, when they were expecting a paycheck, it's not arrived. You know, they need our help. But that's why it's so important to see so many people out here this morning.
Louise Griffiths, one of Mario's ex-colleagues, has 4-year-old twins.
I've been a complete mess. I've just been crying. We've had to go to job seekers allowance interviews, universal credit interviews, which is all totally new to us. I've never been in a job centre before. I've never been out of work since I was 15.
Many of Mario's former colleagues have been hit hard.
It was a shock, really. It was like the realisation that in a week's time, you know, you've got all your monthly bills. I've now got a week, literally, to try and beg, borrow, and get this money off people somehow so that I can just afford to live.
Do you know what? It was a good turnout. I wish more people could have been here, but with all the recruitments, you know, being on, the more important thing is for people to find jobs.
With the news that 9,000 Brits lost their jobs, union bosses have vowed to fight the failed company in the courts.
Workers have rights, so that means unpaid wages, holidays that they've earned but haven't taken. They're legally entitled to be reimbursed. I was really shocked when I heard that there are Thomas Cook workers who have felt so desperate that they have been following up, how do you apply to go to a food bank? They never thought they'd be in that position.
Manny Fontaine-Lenovoa was CEO at Thomas Cook from 2003 to 2011 and reportedly earned almost £17 million in just 4 years. Successor Harriet Green was at the company between 2012 and 2014. She received around £10 million, including bonuses and shares, although she donated some of her bonus to charity. She reportedly claimed £80,000 a year towards hotel bills at the 5-star Browns Hotel in London, where she lived during the week. And Peter Fankhauser, CEO since 2015, earned £8.3 million in salary, bonuses and shares. In interviews following the collapse, Fankhauser has defended his pay and denied accusations of being a fat cat, claiming his ability to save the company was hampered by a debt mountain built up in the years before he took charge.
Fat cat bosses took our money! Fat cat bosses took our money!
Amidst widespread criticism, some Thomas Cook bosses and their pay are now being scrutinised as part of an investigation into the company's collapse.
It's the same old story, isn't it? You know, people at the top siphoning out pretty obscene payments while people at the bottom left with no security, nothing, and wages owed to them.
In the past, Thomas Cook has justified its bosses' pay, linking it to performance. But others remain critical of some of the management.
What you have here is a descent from Victorian values into a corporate world that is really seamy and unpleasant, and what has happened is that Thomas Cook has been treated as a sheep to be sheared by its bosses, and they've sheared it and they've killed off the sheep in the process.
Really, these execs should have been awarded for turning around and creating a future business and a legacy for all of the 9,000 employees there, not for some short-term goal to make a shareholder happy. Big business is about big money, but only when you achieve big targets.
So how did this company, founded by a Baptist missionary, fall so far from its prudent but pioneering foundations?
We dream about it.
Despite its reported problems with mass acquisitions and near collapse in 2011, the company has relied on its reputation and personalised service, as seen in this aspirational ad from 2010.
Thomas Cook had an international business, very much based on the strength of the brand. I think it was very much seen as a rock-solid British export, something that people could rely on and trust and have faith in.
In 2007, the revenue of the UK arm of the holiday firm was over £3 billion a year. But its downfall can be traced back to the fatal mistake of embarking on a spending spree, merging with various companies including Hotels for You, the Co-op and the struggling rival MyTravel.
Because it felt left behind in the move to digital, Thomas Cook, like other companies at the time, was just going around hoovering up anybody it could see. And the sum of the parts was, frankly, quite often, a load of old rubbish.
The trouble with starting an acquisition spree was the world went to hell in 2009, 2010, 2011. So buying lots of travel agencies when the world is in the middle of a global recession and people are losing their jobs is a very poor idea. So timing could not have been worse. And this led to almost the collapse of Thomas Cook in 2011.
They fly holidaymakers to places like Spain, Italy, Greece, and now Thomas Cook has a debt crisis of its very own. The tour operator's share price plunged this morning when it told the markets it needs yet another £100 million loan.
Despite their troubles back in 2011, the acting CEO of Thomas Cook was defiant.
You built up way too much debt, haven't you?
But that is, of course, what we are trying to address now by divesting and also making sure that we are running our business in a more profitable way. And we have stopped acquisition, of course.
If you went bust, can you guarantee that holidaymakers who have booked a package holiday with you would get every penny of their money back?
We will not go bust.
Increased debt since 2007 and allegations of mismanagement are said to be some of the factors that led to the company's eventual demise. In the aftermath, many are asking, could the company have done more to ensure Brits didn't just book it, they Thomas Cooked it? Why exactly did we stop Thomas Cooking it? And how is it that this iconic brand was allowed to become what some people have called an analogue company in a digital world?
This was about a radical overhaul of a travel industry where the consumer had developed in the digital age so much power, so much authority that they could book their own travel anywhere they want, fingertips, on their phone. The information was there, the expertise was there. So Thomas Cook had to justify its existence, and to me it never did.
Under pressure from the online travel sites, low-cost airlines and new companies like Airbnb, Thomas Cook focused on their heritage and massively expanded their high street presence.
The bad bet was high street stores, very expensive, at a time when we all go shopping on the internet. So that was the failure of Thomas Cook's strategy, to gain significantly more high street locations through Co-op and MyTravel and others at a time when the world was going to the web.
In the beginning, Thomas Cook as a company were pioneers in the industry and became synonymous with some of the most exciting times of our lives, our holidays. A sentiment expressed in this cheery Thomas Cook advert from 1986.
Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it.
But in a time of uncertainty, a company built to show us the world just couldn't keep up with a changing one.
The name of Thomas Cook is so important in the transformation of travel from something that only elite could dream of doing to the world we now live in, where our horizons are virtually limitless.
So it breaks your heart to think that this business couldn't actually use its own values, its own creation, its own innovation to get through this digital age. It could have happened. It needed investment. It needed passion. It needed customers that didn't just want to trade with it because of a price. They wanted to trade with it because they wanted a Thomas Cook holiday. And unfortunately, that went away a long time ago.
Apart from the financial story, what were the other factors that led to the Thomas Cook collapse? And what next for consumers? Two weeks ago, Britain's biggest and oldest holiday firm went into liquidation, unable to shift £1.7 billion worth of debt. It was the end of the 178-year-old company, leaving around 150,000 customers stranded in 18 countries abroad. And thousands of Thomas Cook workers at home unemployed. The entire Walkden family worked for Thomas Cook. All are now desperately trying to find a new job, including Dad, 60-year-old Pete.
Last time I did my CV was 24 years ago, so I'm a bit out of depth with this. Why doesn't it upload to here?
It's like a bit of a role reversal for what it was years ago. It's like, never thought I'd have to help my dad do his CV.
As a specialist engineer, Pete's job options are limited, and he may not be able to find suitable work in Manchester.
At the moment, there's no vacancies at Manchester with the other airlines, so I'm possibly going to have to move away on a temporary basis until something comes up, hopefully back up here. We'll just have to see. I honestly don't know what the future is going to be.
Many former Thomas Cook employees, like Pete's son Alex, are now flocking to job fairs, set up specifically to help those who've lost their jobs.
Doesn't matter.
Bit of a late start for me, this. 8:45, not used to leaving the house now. A coffee and a Thomas Cook mug, obviously. Rub it in a bit more.
Job fairs like this at Manchester Airport are at least providing a bit of hope.
I think a lot of people put a brave face on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't show your true emotions when you go to these places. You have to sort of remain positive and go in there with a happy, smiling face and hope that something comes out of it. Time will tell.
If people are struggling with the CVs, then there's going to be some help there for them to get them looking more presentable for a next employer.
A few possible good leads found, hopefully. Been a bit more positive now. Good turnout, and it's good that it was put on, really, but there's lots of people after not many jobs.
Many have blamed the Thomas Cook execs for running the company into the ground and for failing to modernise.
Have you got anything to say to your customers?
But is the Thomas Cook story just a case of snowballing debts and reported mismanagement? Or could there have been events outside of the company's control that have also contributed to its downfall? Spring 2016. Holiday destinations across the world were hit by deadly terror attacks. In March, Brussels was targeted by suicide bombers.
Tonight, Brussels reels from a terror attack. At least 34 are killed in multiple explosions across the city.
And later in June, terrorists laid siege to Istanbul's airport.
41 people were killed, 239 others wounded when 3 men launched a coordinated assault.
All at a time when the holiday industry was still reeling from a series of terrorist attacks the year before.
2015, the massacre on the beach in Tunisia, which killed 30 British holidaymakers. And Tunisia was a really important market to Thomas Cook. Shortly afterwards, a Russian plane taking off from Sharm el-Sheikh was down, we think, by a bomb.
And the British weather also played a part. Last year's heatwave caused holidaymakers to delay their booking decisions. Thomas Cook was hit hard, with earnings down by £88 million.
If you have great summers in the UK, people might decide to have staycations rather than actually going to visit a destination for the sunshine fix they need.
Our consumer research tells us that out of the political and the economical uncertainty, some of the customers delayed their bookings. But we don't see that only in UK. We see it as well in our Nordic business. We see it as well on our continental business.
Brexit didn't help. The 15% fall in the exchange rate, actually it's staying down. It became a great deal more expensive to go on holiday. I think that you can consider Thomas Cook to be a Brexit casualty.
In the case of Thomas Cook, there were some external factors, but it hasn't brought down to bankruptcy other travel businesses. A good executive team will manage and sail through those external factors. A bad executive team, well, I'm afraid, won't.
Over the years, despite the ongoing reported troubles, Thomas Cook's former employees, like David Moore, said they were kept in the dark.
We were never getting told by management that there was any inkling to believing that your job was in jeopardy. People was always asking the question, "Our job's safe?" The always answer was yes. You could have never have imagined that a year later the whole thing would have gone.
With the repatriation effort underway, those who never actually made it to their holiday destination are looking for answers. Many have spent thousands and must now await a refund, which could take months.
What the hell is going on, and when can I get my money back? Because it's a lot of money.
If you've booked a package with Thomas Cook or booked your flight and hotel at the same time, your protections are fantastic, So while it might be very, very distressing, you will definitely get your money back. If you've paid by direct debit, it will happen automatically. The CIA will refund you. If you haven't paid by direct debit, you'll need to go onto the CIA website next week and make a claim. If you've booked with Thomas Cook Airlines and just booked a flight, your protections are effectively zero. There's nothing. It seems the government has stepped in voluntarily to fly those customers home in most cases. But if you've bought a ticket and are yet to travel, you're not going to get your money back. Some travel insurance will cover it. It's quite rare. You need something called scheduled airline failure insurance. Most people don't have it.
So what does that mean for us? With low-cost airlines and the likes of Airbnb now dominating the holiday market, is the package holiday gone?
The thing about capitalism is it's destructive. In order for the new companies to succeed, the old ones are taken down. Thomas Cook goes bust because we are changing the way we go on holiday. The internet exists and low-cost carriers exist, and Booking.com and Airbnb and Expedia and all the various organisations, internet booking services now exist. That is how the world works. It's called disruptive capitalism.
There are those who say that the package holiday business is over. I think that's not quite right. I think that certain kinds of package holiday, in which you don't treat holidaymakers as if they're factory fodder, but as kind of individualized and customized and go for the experiential holiday, I think that kind of holiday retains attraction in the market.
Thanks to Operation Matterhorn, hordes of weary travellers are finally arriving home from their unexpectedly extended holidays.
I'm feeling fine about it. It was a bit of a muck up at the airport at Antalya because nobody seemed to know what was going on or we were there 3 hours and nobody told us why we weren't moving or anything like that.
We got home, you know, it's just been a long day, but it's not been that bad.
Just grateful that you got home. I mean, we set off from Manchester on our holidays and came back to Manchester. We know people who set off from Bristol and went to Glasgow, 19 hours for their journey home.
The death of this once beloved British institution isn't simply a story of a business gone bad. For many thousands of former employees, Thomas Cook meant so much more than just a job, and their lives may never be the same again.
Yeah, the knock-on effect, it's not just the fact that you've lost your job and you know, you're scratching around for a living. It's the fact that we may have to lose our house and where we've kind of got used to living as a family, we may have to lose this.
This is people's lives. Everything has been turned upside down. It's devastating.
Next Sunday, from pyramids to temples, the excavation begins and the history of an ancient African superpower is revealed in Lost Pharaohs of the Nile at 8. Next, the end is in sight for the islanders, but it's not just food they're hungry for. Final Treasure Island with Bear Grylls.